Hi, I'm Mark Beck.
And I'm Stephanie Thompson.
And I'm Megan Salois. We're here with Remax Glacier Country, coming to you from Sunset Plaza here in Kalispell, Montana.
And this is Selling Montana, a podcast about business, entrepreneurship, and real estate. And we have an awesome guest, as always, Marshall Gillen.
Hello. Let's go. I'm about it.
Gotta get. Well, he put his hands up, and I'm like, that's the perfect opportunity.
Yeah. I know it's that kind of podcast. Here we go. Realtors have fun.
Yes.
These ones do. We have a lot of fun.
Yes, we do. We're usually making fun of Mark. That's the fun.
Yeah. So any chance you
We can
get.
split that this episode.
I'm an easy target. Yeah. Well, Marshall, you are an entrepreneur. You're a businessman. You're a business leader.
Yum.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah.
Just overlay.
For sure. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
I've been in business and building a personal brand online for the last 7 years. And I have probably about 150 podcast episodes of my own. And this is the first time I've ever been in a studio with headphones and mics and all of this. So I feel like it's like the Joe Rogan show or something, man. I feel super
That's what I wanted to capture, you know?
I think you just made Mark's day.
I was like, and then I thought it was just you and I on the
Joe.
podcast. And then these two ladies come in. I'm like, okay, so we're doing like this team thing today. So
Yep.
very cool though. No, I do appreciate being here. And yes, I have been in business since 2016. I am a 5-time college dropout. And so I wasn't always like the smartest person or like the person that was like the most committed to sticking to something. But when I discovered entrepreneurship in 2014, it changed my whole life. I was like, wait a second, you're telling me that you can go out and make your own money and live your own life and do your own things? And my mentor's like, yeah, like that's called entrepreneurship. And so the fact that we can build brands and do things like podcast and build relationships like this it's silly to me, but it's awesome. And like, what a blessing. So very cool to be here. Excited to talk with you guys today and see what we get into.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you. And I guess something that really captures me when I watch your content, you're big into not just like business development, but personal development, especially with men.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because when I grew up in the Midwest on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. And so nobody told you that you could I didn't know you could change your life. I know it sounds silly to us sitting here, but entrepreneurship, mentorship, personal development, like what does that even mean growing up on a farm in the mid-90s in Illinois?
Yeah.
You have no concept of it.
No
Yeah.
concept.
No.
There's no template. There's no context. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So I went to school in Northern Illinois, and when I graduated high school, I was like, I'm going to go as far away from home as I can. I went 6 hours south to Southern Illinois. But you know what I mean? Because there's no concept as growing up on a farm that I could like move to San Diego or New York or Miami. Like I just didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when as far as it goes to the content you've been watching of mine lately, when I discovered entrepreneurship, and I told Mark before the show started, I kind of discovered that you could use this telephone to go out and create a brand, a business. And so I did that, and I accidentally made my first 6 figures in my first 7 months. And I was like, holy, I was like, wow, what is going on here? Like, how is this possible? And I was just hyper focused. At the time, I didn't realize how much trauma stemmed from my childhood, or what does that even mean, trauma? Like, what is that, you know? And so I spent my first 5 years in business just making as much money as I can. We've generated over 9 figures for our clients so far, and everything was running smooth. So the beginning of 2019, I walk into my 21st floor, penthouse in San Diego overlooking the ocean. I just finished my last event, and I realized I have never been unhappier than I am right now. I've never been unhappier than the year that I tried to take my life, the years that I lost all the things, like all the things I'd ever been through and worked so hard for. In that one singular moment, I walk into this penthouse. It's the beautiful sight I've always imagined. I was in a toxic relationship. I was not in very good health. I was not mentally healthy, but I was making a lot of money. And I looked like I was crushing it online. And I just was like, I'm in the party. I thought this was supposed to be, isn't this supposed to be everything I always wanted? Like, why am I so unhappy? And so at the end of 2019, I burned everything down. Probably in a very immature way, but a very public way, burnt everything down. And so I left San Diego after 13 years. And even though I grew up on a farm, I was not like an outdoors person. That's not me. I'm like I'm the bougie dude. I'm Mr. Speaker. Like I'm like traveling the world, speaking on stage, like doing all things. And so I just said, I have to go. And I went home to Illinois to see my mom in the beginning of 2020, just to say, because I haven't seen her in a while. And then that little thing hit where we all had the masks and did all things and teach
That
their
little
own.
thing. Yeah.
So I decided to stay home with my mom there in the beginning of 2020. And I ran into an old friend of mine from high school, hadn't seen in 15 years. And we started going camping because that was like the only thing you could do.
Yeah.
It's funny for me to think about me to go camping because I'm like, Marshall Gillen going camping? What are we talking about? And so we went camping for like 5 weekends in a row. We kept getting further and further and further away from Illinois until one weekend we were all the way out in Denver. And we came back and he's like, do you want to move to Montana?
And you're like, what the?
And I'm like, do I want to? No, I don't suppose. I don't suppose I do. Thank you. I'm good, bro. But then he sent me the location of Whitefish I'd never heard of. And I was like, texting back. I'm like, when do we leave? And so we moved here to Montana. I was living in a cabin in Sioux Falls with like no internet. Like I was on a sabbatical from business. I was like, just done. I'm like, I'm never coaching, never speaking. I'm never doing any of that again. As a matter of fact, I went back to bartending. So it's like, here we go. Like made 7 figures, have made multiple 9 figures for my clients. And I'm working in a bar in Sioux Falls for $200 a night.
That's where I first met you.
Okay.
Yeah, at Gunsight.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And so it's like, here I am, and I'm starting to be away from business. I'm starting to be not immersed in where my identity is money. Because especially as a man, and not against women, but it's like, especially as a man, from the time I was born, it was like everything my self-worth is based on my performance. How I perform in the classroom, the boardroom, the bedroom, on the field, whatever it is. And so I had this broken identity of myself where what I was really doing was trying to go out and validate myself and trying to get acceptance and approval from everybody. And I thought that the way I did that was making a lot of money and helping a lot of people. So when I moved here to Montana and I no longer had internet, access from my phone anywhere that I wanted to, I was really faced with a lot of things inside of me that usually I distracted myself with. Now, I don't know what kind of show this is, but I was a severe drug addict for a lot of my life. And even when I was winning and traveling the world, speaking on stage about changing your life, I was the guy who always had like, a little party favor in his little pocket there and cruising around and doing a thing. And so when I got here to Montana, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections. Yeah. And I just sat in my cabin and I did a lot of crying, a lot of crying. Yeah. And I ended up getting sober, I think 637 days today.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, congrats.
That needs another one.
We'll do the applause.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's I'm not like out here to preach about, sobriety. It's for different people. My fiance, she has a glass of wine or so every night, loves it. Me, I have a drink and I want to go do all the drugs and burn everything down. So I don't.
Yeah.
So long story longer, the content that I got into is I started to discover some ways to really heal myself in some ways that, people are like, it's woo-woo, right? Like, oh, you get in a cold bath every day, or you put your bare feet on the ground, or you meditate, or you eat healthy, or all these crazy biohacks that can actually realign who we are. And so I started just making content about it. I started trying to find my identity in something different besides how much money I make or how much of an impact I can make in somebody's life. And the last 2 years have been tough because it's like everything inside of me is just squirming to go back to the money part, to find my validation, to be accepted here online, And so it's been some time, but I finally came out of that kind of sabbatical about 4 or 5 months ago. Literally, it was just like, some stuff happened at Gunsight. We won't throw them under the bus, but some stuff. Hey, listen, it's like any job, right? Like any bar, any service industry job, whatever. And so I was like, I hit up my fiance. I mean, we literally didn't have any money in my account. Like I was a bartender working shift to shift, but I was like, babe, we can't do this. I'm not going into work tonight. She's like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm just going to host an event because that's what I've done forever is host events. And so we did. And I was like, I put up an event, we sold it out, and we've been hitting the ground running for the last 4 or 5 months ever since. And it feels super good to be back. But the content that you see is that.
Totally
it's a lot of
different.
healing. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to just talk about business. I want to talk about all the things that make your life better besides just having money.
Yeah.
And you're far more relatable. Especially for someone like myself, gone through a divorce, exited, left the religion that I grew up in, I literally left my entire life behind.
Wow.
Left my Jehovah's Witness wife, left my Jehovah's Witness family for the most part, except for the ones that chose to come with me. And COVID was kind of that, we all got to hit a reset button.
100%.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the time in my life that I get to hit a reset button. And I'll tell you, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
Nope.
Good for you.
That's the one thing I kept telling people, when 2020 hit, that was the thing that was most obvious to me. I was like, there's content for me back then. I'm like, do you guys realize there's never been a time in our lives or anywhere recently, generations, where you could completely become whoever you wanted to be and nobody's gonna question you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you were a realtor today and tomorrow you wanted to go, paint with garbage, like you could. And you'd be like, I had an epiphany. Not that any realtor should do that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, like, I agree that I wholeheartedly. I'm like, this is a time and an era where you can literally become anything that you want to become. And it's easy to listen to a podcast like this. And I don't know where our listeners are from or the viewers here, but if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. But really though, I'm like, if you're listening to this, and I was asking Mark right before we got on, I'm like, why did you start this? And he was like, well, Stephanie wanted this and I wanted this and Meg wanted this. And it just was, firing something in my brain that was going, man, I hope our listeners get the point of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is a cool podcast and we're doing the thing, but anybody that's listening to this can do anything they want. It's like, that's the one thing I wish somebody would have told me back in the day is like, hey, whatever you want to accomplish in life, just go out and find somebody who's already doing it and then invest time, money, and or energy into them, and then just learn it. Close that gap and collapse time is what my mentors call it. So,
and that's really what the internet should be used for is investigation and like being able to learn and being able to create that new business that you want to do, whatever it is, right? Like that's what the purpose of the internet should be for, is best utilized for.
It's just so crazy because it's like the internet is such a trigger for human beings in general.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how I am. Like, I don't really enjoy it. So I don't feel like I can use it for that because then it's like the comparison game. And, so it's hard to find that balance for sure. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
100% a double-edged sword.
Agree. I use it for like humor. I try to not use my social media for anything serious because I don't.
Mine's more just personal.
Because I do the same thing. I go down a rabbit hole in comparison. Like,
See, I don't actually watch social media that much. I
You
mostly
just, like, put yourself
I post
out
and
and
ghost.
yeah.
I should. I've been doing that lately.
And I learned. One time I got drawn in on like comments, and I was not. And I was like responding to them, and I'm like, man, what am I doing? These guys would never come up to me face to face, look me in the eye, and say this.
Keyboard warriors.
Like,
Seriously.
they would never have the guts to do that. Like, forget it. Like, just push it aside and just keep posting and keep doing my thing.
It makes me think of the quote by, was it Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena?
Oh, I don't know that one.
I don't know that.
It's a long quote, but it's like the man in the arena. The glory goes to the man in the arena who's actually doing the stuff. Just not the people in the stands and that whole thing. And the thing that's cool about social media or the internet in general for me is I just became a dad 2 years in this recent relationship. I have a 10 and 13-year-old boy, and I came from a stepfather who was a monster. So it's funny how God works. Now I have an opportunity to be a stepfather. But besides kids, I mean, I think social media is like the ultimate reflection. Because it really is going to reflect back. I mean, it's like life as well, and not to get too crazy out there, but if science proves that we live in an energetic universe, and if science proves that my body is made up of 70 trillion cells that don't even connect to each other, that I'm not even a real entity, then that means that my thoughts really can create things. And so the algorithms that we face here on social media, people don't realize, but it's like that's the algorithm of life energy. Like what you put out, you get back. And so I always try to remind people, I'm like, they're like, oh, I saw this on social media or this. I'm like, well, where were you clicking at, dude? Like, what were you clicking around and looking at and reading? Because the algorithm's just going to feed you more of that.
Yeah, totally.
And so the reflection I get from social media is it's easy for me to do that too. And not that I never have, but to be able to compare, to judge, to not feel like I'm doing enough. Or, Mark's like, all the information you want for research is right there. That's true. But then people also have to find that balance of like, where do you get stuck by analysis or paralysis by analysis, where you're constantly just always in personal development, right?
Yep.
And so really that social media comes finding that balance in your life too. It's like, how can I use this tool to make money, impact the world, and increase influence?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it's been a ride.
The first time I ever watched you on social media was a couple months ago, and I thought it was so cool. The first thing that I watched, there's not really any guys out there like uplifting other guys, and that was what you were talking about. Like, you are the leader of your household. Be a positive person. Put positive things into your life because you're an example for your kids, your significant other. Like, that was what you were talking about. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? That's awesome.
It's crazy because my God talks to me through our 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And so we were driving to school towards the end of last year, right before I went back and decided to launch my business. And Josh and I were chatting about something, and he looked at me and he said, I just want to grow up and make a bunch of money so we can give it away to people for free who need it. And I was like, me too, bro. That's what I've been trying to do.
That's a good 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I went home that night and I told my fiance, Kirsty, I said, our boys deserve to know what it looks like to have a man go for his dreams. And I mean, like, to really go for his dreams, not based on money or anything like that. Like, they deserve the context. They lost their father when he was 36. So they were just a couple years old to basically drugs and alcohol. He drank and drugged himself to death until they had to go to the hospital and, kind of pull the plug. And so for me to come into their life and be sober, and I just lost my dad in July over the kind of the same thing. And so it was interesting because we all went as a family back to Wisconsin to see my father. I had to walk into a house at the age of 37 at the time, tell my dad goodbye for the last time. My two boys were with me, but the interesting thing is they'd already done that part of life before.
Yeah.
All of the experiences I've ever had my whole life, those two young boys were able to walk by my side and it makes me emotional. Think about it. Hold
I
me
know,
as a
I'm
rock.
like about to cry.
Like I'm sitting there crying, and Josh and Tristan are coming in like, bro, like you got this. And so I was starting to realize that it's all so much bigger than me. It really, really is. And I'm being presented with this opportunity to do something that a lot of people don't get a chance to do.
Yeah.
And so when I think back to me being a boy, well, the problem that I had was that I had the greatest mom in the world. And she told me I could do anything ever. And she believed in me and she supported me. But my real dad left when I was 2. He chose drugs and alcohol, which is fine. Great. And I ended up building a relationship with him over the last 4 years before he passed, which was amazing. So go heal that with your dad if you haven't, gentlemen.
Yeah.
But then my stepfather was a monster. He would tell me every day how worthless I am. You're going to be just like your dad. Like you're good for nothing all the time. And so my whole life, what my experience was I was a standout in everything. Straight A student, captain of the team, class president, homecoming king, all the things you could be, but it was never enough. And so I got a full academic ride to college. But I dropped out after the first semester, And so my whole life was this thing of this belief subconsciously that I didn't understand, which was no matter how much success I have, the people I want to care will never care. They'll never care.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the point? So that's why I got lost in drugs and alcohol for most of my 20s.
Yeah.
And so this applies to the men and the work that we're doing now. It's like, yeah, great. Top paid speaker in my company. Like, we crush it. You want to get paid to speak. You want to learn how to create influence. Great. Come talk to us. But my mission is so much bigger than that now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm realizing. I look back and I go, well, I never had a male role model to teach me. But I can't be mad at my stepdad or I can't be my dad because they didn't have anybody to teach them. And every single thing, like I can think back, I'm like, so many times I just want to beat up my stepdad, right? And I'll think like, okay, cool. So I beat him up and I'm standing over top of him and he's crying. But the man on the ground crying is actually the little boy inside of him that was never, that nobody ever cared about. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that and I see all these men out here, building businesses, I'm like, I can tell. I'm like, bro, like we should go somewhere and have a talk. And so, if you see me launch these men's retreats and stuff now, it's okay, cool. There's a lot of people winning in business, but I know all the stuff that you guys aren't talking about because I was the guy not talking about it.
Yeah.
So if I start a conversation about it, now I have a lot of men who are making great money and they're messaging me like, yo, bro, I need some of whatever you guys are talking about. And in that, I'm finding that brotherhood is the medicine. Having powerful men come together.
You're totally right, because you get to that point eventually where you've made a lot of money and you're still unhappy, right? Like that's going to happen. And it doesn't fill your soul, doesn't fill your cup, and it's like, okay, well, I can make more, but who cares if I'm unhappy with it, right? And so that's what's so profound about it, and you're not the only person doing this, right? Like, I mean, there's like this realization.
The collective is awakening.
The collective is awakening.
I think it's like a generational thing.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in generational
100%.
like things passing down, and I feel like our generation is like where it ends. You got to break those. And how cool that you're doing that for your family.
It's a blessing.
Everything that's been handed down, you're changing that. You're changing the trajectory of your family's legacy, and you're teaching other people how to do that. So that's so cool.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been the scariest thing I've ever done to put myself back out there and not lead with money. Especially when you have all these results and it's like, that's all I want to talk about. But that's the one thing I know that I shouldn't be talking about. And so really just trusting that what's meant for me will come to me. If I'm sitting here, I just posted a reel yesterday about me doing an ice bath in like 35 degrees, right? It gets like 20,000.
I love it.
Everybody loves it.
So I have another friend that does that. He goes down the river because it's the same effect. It's cold.
Even better.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I've done it a couple times, and there's something about it.
There's nothing in my life that's been more beneficial for my mental health than my ice baths. Maybe
I'm going to try it.
It's so, it clears.
Mental health?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It clears your mind. There's nothing else you can think about. And if you're like me and you're like, I have anxiety, like 5 minutes.
I get
Like
stuck
5
in
minutes.
my thoughts and I am just like,
Yeah. And I have ADD. And so I have like focusing problems there.
Yep.
You can't focus on anything other than the cold water.
You can't be anywhere else.
Yeah. And so it just dials you in. And then the rest of your day, you're just like dialed. So
I'm going to have to try that.
So my favorite thing is, so there's a lot of things to the ice bath. When I first started it, I thought I was dying of stomach cancer, but I probably just really had an ulcer. I obviously didn't go to the doctor because I'm a man, you know.
that's right.
Doctor,
I'm a
no.
man.
Yeah. So I started doing some research online and I started learning about, you know, different ways and practices to heal yourself. This is back in 2019, again, when I thought I was dying. And really, so the reason I got into it first and foremost was because of the health benefits. So it's like when you get into the cold bath, for example, one of the systems in your body, the lymphatic system, which flushes all the toxins and gunk out of you. What happens when you get in the cold water is they actually get bigger. The veins get bigger, right? And so what happens is your body's going, oh my God, they can feel the toxins flushing out of your body. And so your immune system goes, oh, we must be sick because it's in hyperdrive. We're flushing everything. And so now you're tapping into this self-healing modality inside of your body that's allowing it to kick up systems that otherwise would be dormant. And so there's not very many places in life that you can replicate dying. I mean, really dying at such a primal level as getting into the ice bath. And so same thing with breath work. And so what people are not teaching you, like during COVID, it was like nobody was talking about being out in the sun or fresh air or some meditation.
Yeah.
It was like, go to the doctor, do this, isolate, be inside. And so what's happening is, you know, and our kids, I'm such a terrible parent because our kids are so limited on phones and internet. But
sounds like a good parent to me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so it's like every time you pick this up and it doesn't matter, or listen to a song or anything, it's always mental stimulation. Even if you don't think so, it's a constant dopamine hit. And all before too long, your adrenaline's pumping. Now you have adrenal fatigue and into a myriad of different things. And so what I was finding in my life is that once I stopped distracting myself with booze, which I never had a problem drinking. I just knew that drinking was going to allow me to give myself permission to do the next thing. Mm-hmm. But what I'm realizing is that we're living in a world where people want us to be distracted. I mean, the system, whatever it is, it's like it's every way. There's nowhere that you can go to feel your feelings. It's constant distraction. Hey, you're okay. Let's talk about mental health, but let's not actually do anything about it. And so
seriously,
when I get into the cold water, that's why I was like, oh, it's for healing. But the more time I spent in there, like Mark said, there's nowhere else you can go. And then all of a sudden my breath becomes my anchor. And if you consider that breathing is the first thing you ever do in this life and the last thing you'll ever do in this life, and then some people believe that your breath is your spirit, that is your soul, like the life in you is your breath. And so I started to connect more to my breath inside the water. And then one thing led to another, one thing after another. And so now I get into the cold tub and no matter what's going on in my day, I'm just there and I breathe through it. And I get out and you feel just, alive. And it's in that moment then I can start to change the reality that I want to live in, right? If every day I wake up and the first thing I do is open my eyes and I would live in this very predictable reality where, okay, I'm gonna get up and make the coffee and then I'm gonna do the kids thing and then I'm gonna fight to get the clients or whatever. Well, in that moment, what if I sat down and visualized and then wrote down exactly the life I want to live or who I want to become? And how can I continue to live into that every day? And so really, if we go back to living in an energetic universe and our body is nothing but a bunch of cells that are energy that vibrate at a frequency, and you look at something like the double slit experiment, which you guys can Google, double slit experiment. Long story short, it basically proves that thoughts become things, that matter is anything unless observed by conscious awareness. At what point then it becomes physical matter? I mean, science proves that. And so thoughts do become things. And so in that regard, if I know the physical plane of reality is the last place for something to manifest, then how do I get my mind in a place where I can manage my state? But even deeper than that, into the woo-woo, which is, how can I manage my frequency? So now you go back to the ice baths, or you go back to walking in nature, forest bathing, or you go back to the breath work. And really what I'm doing is I'm managing my states, but taking control of the frequency that I'm vibrating at. And so now what happens is I get in a cold bath, freezing. I sit there for about 5 to 10 minutes. I get out, I stand outside, I invoke the shiver response. So my body's actually burning the brown adipose fat that you can't otherwise usually burn. But then if I go get in the sauna or a hot shower, and I go the other way for 5 to 10 minutes, Then I get out, and now this is I hope this is, not too much, but if I sit naked, in my bedroom or something, and I do breath work for 10 minutes, I am telling you, if you go ice to hot to sit naked and doing breath work, there's arguably not a more relaxing, more empowering, more, your physiology changes. Now my vibration has changed, my state has changed, and now I'm able to make decisions from that point instead of one that's constant, just a whole bunch of gunk. And so the more you practice these disciplines, now it's like, okay, cool. I have a fight with my fiance, or the kids are annoying me, or traffic or whatever. And I close my eyes and I can picture, because 100% of the time I get in a cold bath, I don't want to. 100% of the time.
You're never like, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And so if I can look at my life like that, in the moments of my life when I feel like that, I can close my eyes and say, no, here we go. You do a little Mel Robbins, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch, here we go.
Yeah.
And now I'm taking that next step. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, the power of that is insane. So back to what we originally said, I was like, I post a video about that, I get 20,000 views. I literally post a 10-minute video or even a 3-minute video telling you exactly how to make $10,000 a month online. I can tell you exactly how to make $10,000 a month. I don't care who you are. That gets like 17 views. But people watch my ice bath thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here?
Funny.
Hang on just a second. Hang on. Let's go back to the dopamine thing, because that's such a bad problem today, especially with men, I think, where it's always instant gratification. Yeah. And I've never, ever had something that I got it instantly. I was never actually satisfied with that. Yeah. Everything that I had to like work for and put in the effort and really strive for, and it was uncomfortable, that is when, and then I got the dopamine. It was like, oh my God, it was so worth it.
Our society is backwards now.
Yeah.
Well, by design.
Completely backwards.
But
Yeah. And I think it's the same way. I don't know. I just notice it more than ever with men, because we never had this like we have today.
Well, do you have kids?
I have a son, yes.
Yeah. We all have kids.
Okay, then you see it now. I mean, my 10 and 13-year-old, I mean, my 10-year-old can't focus on anything. I mean, he is, nothing. And so everything is a 5 to 10 second reel in their life, and then, obviously all of us probably didn't really grow up with technology in this regard. Yeah. But now it's like, I'm 38. So I remember what it was like before that. I remember the change, and now I'm starting to see how it's going even faster. But as it turns out, it's like, okay, well, what's the best way to keep somebody sick or somebody afraid? It's to keep them 100%. Tired. It's to keep them down. Yeah. And so if we have this constant society where everything is dopamine, and actually there's studies that show that it's not the dopamine that you're addicted to, it's actually the buildup. It's actually the build. And I always, I think about what days when I was doing drugs, like doing the drug was never as exciting as like leading up to doing the first one. Or it's like you order a pizza and you're so excited for the pizza to get there, and you eat the first one and it's exciting, but the real excitement is true. And so in society and TikTok and all these things are like, they play into that. And so if you're constantly dumping that dopamine, it's inevitable that sooner or later you're not. And so what it really comes down to is compulsion. Everybody here has this compulsiveness. Oh, I'm bored. Let me grab something to eat. Oh, I see this picture on Instagram of this half naked girl. Now I have an impulse to go do the next thing. And so it's like, but it really is. It's true. Like pornography is a massive thing in men. And so you want to talk about how pornography in general is tearing the society apart. I mean, you have society teaching women to be hyper masculine, teaching men to be hyper feminine. And now the woman believes that she doesn't need a man, and the man has always been coddled by the mom. And now he has boy psychology, and he grows up unsuspectingly, but wants the woman to take care of him. And it's a mismatch. It's not a gender thing. It's a polarity thing. It's a charge, positive and negative. And so when you look at that and the dopamine, it's like, okay, cool. Well, really, we live in a society where we're always seeking comfort. We want everything easy, comfortable. And
we want it now.
And in America, it's perfect for that. Yeah. So really, it becomes setting up tactics and strategies for you to make yourself wait. Like I intermittent fast. It started for health, but now it's for more than that. It's when I feel like, I want to go do this. Well, can I wait an hour? Can I wait half the day? Can I wait until tomorrow to do it? And it sucks, but like you said, dude, anything worth having is worth working for. Yep. But nobody even knows that in this generation anymore.
That's so true. They don't even, they're just like, give me a handout, give it,
Exactly. And so I don't know if you saw this article, but it's been prevalent in a lot of the things that I watch on personal development, and it's the rise of lonely single men in America. It's never been higher. And it's directly related to what you're talking about. It's directly related to instant gratification.
100%.
And it's on purpose because they know that's how you destroy a family first. Is take the man and make him not a man.
Exactly.
So,
Literally.
Or feed into everything that all of his primal desires, right? You know, with the insecurities as well, but it's like the primal desire. So, you know, now again, like if you look at pornography, for example, okay, cool. Well, I'm a man who's married. I've got a bunch of kids, and my wife is not a supermodel, but I'm attracted to her, right? But every single time, even if I don't touch myself, if I open up and I look at that, I'm getting dopamine hits. The signals are sending there, and now all of a sudden, I'm comparing everything to whatever in real life. So how am I ever supposed to be attracted to my woman again if I'm constantly looking at pictures of naked chicks? And if I do take it to the next thing, it shows that studies show that it can take 5 to 7 days for your testosterone to just to get back to the normal level it was after one time of you know, like getting down on yourself, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't know. But it's like,
I love where this has gone, man.
Like
this is just awesome.
but really though, because it's like this translates to everything. You want to sell more houses? Like, okay, cool. Well, how can you take care of your physiology and your mind? Because when I show up at a show, when I go to a showing and I have to tell a story to my potential buyer, like I'm not going in and being like, I mean, I'm not a realtor, so I'm not gonna pretend like I know, but I do know storytelling, and storytelling trumps everything. But it's like if I can walk into a house and I don't need to tell you about the fixtures and the square footage, I just want to get to know you. Oh, you have 3 kids? Man, Megan, can you imagine what it's going to be like watching your kids grow up in this kitchen? At that island, they're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. I'm painting the picture of a story.
Yeah.
But if I'm not in alignment with myself and I'm constantly distracting and giving into impulses, then when I show up to those showings, how much money do I really expect to make? How many people's dreams can I really make come true? And so now what we're doing is we're really creating more resistance. We're having to push instead of attracting things to us in every single facet that we do. And it all starts with these little things that we do in the shadows. And so really what it comes is shining the light on your darkness without being cliche and bringing those shadows to the forefront. And so when I do, you know, like a men's retreat I have coming up in January, it's like, that's what we do. Everybody there is making great money, but there's a lot of things in the shadows that they're not talking about or that they just want to address it in general. Yeah. And now creating a safe container for men to step into that, for us to have these conversations. So when they go home to their women, they can show up in their king energy and treat her like a queen, because women want that. They want that from their man, but there's no context in today's society for a woman to be able to count on a man, because the man can leave. Oh, I don't like this, I'm just going to leave. I mean, studies show actually that more women are initiating divorces now than ever. Which is
over 70% are initiated by women.
Right. Yeah. Because men will just deal with it. And women are getting to a point now where they don't want to. But the reality of it is that it takes equal partners doing the work on themselves and on each other. But if we live in a world where we're constantly taught that working hard and we want it easy, then it's just, I'll go on Tinder, I can DM somebody on Instagram, I don't need you. But then you're right back to the same thing. Yeah. And so that's what the whole mission's about, because it really, who's affected? Well, it's the little Marshall, the little Mark, the little Stephanie, the little Megan. It's the little ones in the beginning, and it's breaking those generational curses. And it's deciding, you know what, this is going to stop with me. This stops with me. And what does that look like for you? And, you know, that's different for everybody. So that's why these conversations are so important. I love what you guys are doing here.
I love what you're doing.
Yeah, I know.
It's almost like I do this for a living or something.
I know. It's like, you know what you're talking about.
Professional speaker.
You helped me with some things.
What a dumb job, professional speaker. Like, what are we talking about?
Oh my gosh.
I can tell stories for a living. Like, that's so stupid. I don't know how it's got to be my life, but it's a blessing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's it's an incredible career, and it's like, it's so needed. Like the information, what you bring and provide is needed. And I mean, like you said, I mean, I learned something every time I talk to Marshall.
I know, literally.
Every time I watch him. So
yeah, I think I'm going to try some ice baths.
Yeah.
Literally.
For anybody that wants to do it, I could not take a cold shower. Like, that would be harder for me than getting into an ice bath 100% of the time. But
because a bath, you got to get in a shower. You're like,
So the secret to taking ice baths is your breath. I know I said that. So when you get in, it's really breathing in through your nose, feeling my belly fill up, and then blowing the air out of a hole, the smallest hole I possibly can. So it's like...
Okay.
And literally you do that for a few breaths, and all of a sudden it's been like 5 minutes, and you're like, am I time traveling? Because that does not seem like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's really the cool thing, is the more all the things we're talking about today, everything really comes down to one thing. It's I want to be able to learn how to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
Because that's, everybody that's had any success, it's the one thing they say, the power of now, how to be right now. It's always right now. You listen to Kobe Bryant in an interview talking about being great. And he's like, I just focus on being great on everything. If I'm doing the dishes, I want to do the dishes the greatest I can, and really creating that focus on being here right now.
Yeah.
And that is such a big thing to learn about yourself. And it took me until my late 20s, basically till I was about 30 years old, to realize that it's like, man, I wasn't present in the moment in a lot of my life.
Yeah.
You know, I was
you
just
look
like,
back and you're like,
Where was
where was I?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's even hard for me. I was just talking to my brother about this. He's a pastor. And I was like, it's so hard. I get so tired working all day so hard. And then you get home and you hardly want to talk to anybody. And that's when he's like, look at it as sports. That's the fourth quarter. When you show up at home, it's the fourth quarter with your family, and you have to go hard for your family.
Yeah.
Great analogy.
Be present in the moment. And
well, and I like to reverse engineer that, because that's the problem I was having, and the people I work with, that's usually the problem they're having, is they go so hard in business that when they show up, there's nothing left. And so really the question becomes, well, how do we create a lifestyle? Because I know that we've been taught that we're supposed to do things this way, but that can't be the only way.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if you work a 9 to 5 or whatever you do, really what it comes down is prioritizing, but it's hard because it comes down to faith and trust. Well, Marshall, I that's great, but I got to go make money. I got to make the money. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right. You do. And so that's where the work is, that personal development work is done, right? Is starting to learn, well, what is most important to me? How do I put that at the front? So I don't, and not that the analogy is not great, because it is, but how do I not have to come back in the fourth quarter all the time?
Yeah.
Like, how do I come out and dominate in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter? Yeah, you're going to have games where you're not always on, but the real question becomes, okay, cool. Well, what is my life? What does my ideal life look like? And then reverse engineering from that. And the chances are, if you living your dream lifestyle right now, probably not. But like we've just been saying, anything worth having is worth working for.
Yeah.
So most people, you walk out in the street and you go, hey, if you could have anything you want in your life, what would it be? Oh, well, I don't know. I don't have time to think about that. But if I walk out in the street and say, hey, what's the one thing you definitely don't want to happen today? And they're like, well, let me tell you about all these things, man.
The instant negativity. Everyone has the negativity down.
And so it's like,
Totally.
that's what the thing comes down to, is like, most people don't ever get what they want because they don't even get clear on what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They don't know what they want, so then they have no purpose,
So
because
they-
they're not
right.
What direction are you going?
Well, and how can you even have time in this day and age to think about what you want? Because you're on your phone and you're
And that's-
stimulated all the time. I'm like that. I'm like, my mind is always a mess. You're just like,
You got to be
spinning
intentional.
in circles.
Intentional.
Instead of having expectations that if you guys haven't read the book, The 4 Agreements, definitely go do it. But it's a game changer. But it's like no expectations is one of the 4 agreements that you make with yourself. I have absolutely no expectations, but I have intentions. Okay, I have an intention to wake up this week and to provide families with a dream. I don't sell houses. I don't. That's a lever. But really, what I'm doing is creating a vision of what it is that you want to live. And so, if my intention every day is not to worry about how many houses I'm selling, but hey, everybody that I make contact with, am I bringing them one step closer to believing that their dream is true, or am I bogging them down with the realities? Which one's the right way to look at? Because if you come to me and I tell you, well, this is the price of the house and I don't know how you're going to afford that, well, you're going to reinforce, if thoughts become things, you're going to continually reinforce. I wake up, oh, I can't afford that house. But if I come to you and I paint a picture of what it is that you want and the dream life you want, and I say, hey, well, what would you have to do to make this dream come true? Well, now when you wake up in the morning, your mind is searching for that, as opposed to going right to the certainty that it wants, which is, this is never going to happen. And so the big thing I tell people a lot, I'm like, listen, if it was my birthday and I called the Uber to come pick me up, I live in Montana now. I forgot there's not a lot of Ubers over here.
What's Uber?
If I call,
There's actually a lot more now.
I know, that's what I heard. But it's like, if I call Uber and say, hey, come pick me up, I want to go dance in downtown, but I don't tell them where, well, Uber's going to come pick me up. They're going to drive all over the place. And eventually I'm going to get so mad. I'm like, you don't know where you're going. Just stop and let me out. However, if the Uber comes and I say, I want to go to this specific 1, 2, 3 dance hall, well, it doesn't matter if there's a detour accident. It does not matter. The Uber is going to find a way to that location because I gave it a destination to go to. Yeah. And so most people got to realize that their life is like that. They're not giving the Uber any destination to go to. They're telling the Uber driver everything they don't want, except for where do you want to go? And most people don't have enough confidence in themselves to even believe that what they want to do is possible, so they never even dare to dream it.
Yeah.
So that's why these things are so important. Entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurs are going to save the world, but that's just me. People looking for solutions.
I love it.
So it's like, as entrepreneurs, this is our duty. One thing about making our money is great, but it's our duty to talk about these things that we don't talk about. Mark, how did you end up being the brokerage owner? Like, that didn't just happen overnight, and there was a lot of things that went into it.
You know, it was the same way that I won Rookie of the Year. I woke up and I thought about it every day. I literally manifested it. And I was like, okay, how am I going to get it? Well, I need to do this many deals. I need to get on this committee. I need to volunteer my time because it's not all about business. It's about giving more than 100%. You're receiving. And they manifested and materialized.
And you had to show up and work for it.
Yeah, every day.
100%.
Every day.
But it's easier when you have a vision. It's not, I don't say easier, simpler. When you know where you're going and you can have that carrot in front of you. It's like if you go to my house, there's Post-it notes all over everything. There's all kinds of things. I'm sticking stuff on the wall, like our men's retreat. Okay, here's the dollar number I want. This is what I want to impact today. Yep. Here's all of my things, because now I'm constantly getting up inside of my psyche. It's there. It's right in front of me all the time, and I always know what the finish line is. It doesn't make it, like I said, necessarily easier, but simpler.
Yeah, at least have a focus.
Yep.
Where focus goes, energy flows. Tony Robbins.
That's awesome.
That's true. Marshall, this is a lot of information, and we're kind of a short podcast.
That's okay.
We're not a 2-hour podcast,
but
I wish we were.
I wish.
No, I could listen to him for 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah, it's been an hour. It's been an honor to be here. I think what you guys are doing is very, very cool, especially in the realtor space. Don't stop. Keep going.
Oh, we won't.
Keep doing your thing.
We
keep
won't.
shining your light.
It's part of our goal. So
cool.
Thank you so much for being
here.
here.
All your insight.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening and viewing. Please like, share, subscribe. Help us expand our viewership.
Let's go. Be a friend. Tell a friend.